There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped in 10th and Ranch by Glider.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, and today we're not really going to be, this is usually when I do coffee with Cannon, backyard beverage, bitching with Bill, whatever you want to call it, but today I think there's a national story that I think we should cover, even though it's not specifically to do with crime or criminal justice, and that's Hurricane Ian down in Florida. The Gulf Coast is going to get hit real hard. And I think it's an important story. We all have to learn how to endure these nasty, nasty weather we get sometimes. And we all have to work together. We have to plan as a country and as a nation to deal with this stuff. Hurricane Ian grows to a powerful Category 4 as it nears the Florida coast. This is a major, major storm, Governor DeSantis said early Wednesday, as he warned residents in the counties where Ian may take landfall that it was way too late to evacuate. So they were given evacuation orders a couple of days ago. And if you're in the eye of that storm, you don't want to mess around. You know, you're gambling with your life. You know, property is one thing. Probably with these storms, it's a good idea to get your vehicles to high ground or get them the hell out of there, because we all know what happens to a motor vehicle when it gets submerged in water. It's basically useless. So Hurricane Ian is now a powerful Category 4 storm. It closed in on the western coast of Florida early Wednesday with extremely dangerous rains and winds expected to intensify in coastal areas soon. The eye of the storm is projected to cross overland this afternoon. Officials said the storm, which was upgraded to Category 4 shortly before 5 a.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, could strengthen to a Category 5, the strongest classification on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale. Only 2 Category 5 storms have made landfall in the United States in the last 30 years. The hurricane had maximum sustained winds of 155 miles per hour as of 7 a.m. Eastern Time, just short of the threshold for Category 5. Ian caused severe flooding in the Florida Keys after passing west of there on Tuesday night. You follow its path. Millions of residents are under evacuation orders or advisories in parts of coastal Florida, but Governor Ron DeSantis warned Wednesday morning that it was too late to leave in counties where it could make landfall. Officials in Cuba said they were working to restore electricity after the storm knocked out power to the entire island on Tuesday night. At least 2 people in Cuba were killed. So this is the real deal. You know, this is not the type of storm that you play around with, that you hang out and hope for the best. This is the type of storm you get out of Dodge. You know, you get out of the area because it's very dangerous to stay around. And you know, people sometimes they don't take the advice, and that's a scary thing, because you know you're not only are you risking your property, you're risking your life. You know, and that's you know, you don't want to do that. Let me play a little bit of Governor DeSantis
before exiting the Northeast Florida coast, probably sometime on Thursday. Much of southern Florida is already experiencing impacts from the storm as it moves closer to landfall. There have been several tornado warnings issued during the overnight hours, and we expect to see that continue today. A storm of this magnitude will produce catastrophic flooding and life-threatening storm surge on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and the highest risk areas are ranging from Collier County up to Sarasota County. The current track has the storm making landfall in Charlotte County. If you are in any of those counties, it's no longer possible to safely evacuate. It's time to hunker down and prepare for this storm. This is a powerful storm that should be treated like you would treat if a tornado was approaching your home. If you're out on the roads, get to a safe place as soon as possible. There's more than 200 shelters open in just the Southwest Florida region alone. We're already seeing bridge closures. The Skyway Bridge is closed now, going from Manatee to Pinellas counties. There's 40,000 power outages reported, but outside of Southwest Florida, crews are responding to those power outages. Don't go outside in the eye of the storm. It's still dangerous. There's actually a calmness if the center of the hurricane is right over you. You think maybe the storm has passed. That's not the case. It's still very dangerous. There's possibilities of tornadoes. It would also be very difficult to potentially get back into your home. So even if it seems calm, wait to make sure that the storm has actually passed. Once the storm is passed and it's safe to go outside, I urge you to be cautious. Avoid downed power lines. Avoid standing water. Stay clear of damaged trees. If you are using a generator for power, make sure that that is being operated outside your home. Do not operate that indoors. And then don't drive in flooded streets. People will look and think they can drive through it, and it doesn't work out well for them. As the storm has approached, we've already had enough winds to have local bridges closed. So the bridge on State Road 64, Manatee Avenue East, has now been closed. The bridge at SR 684 and Cortez Road has now been closed. And the John Ringling Causeway has been closed. And that is basically a function of when the winds reach a certain threshold. Obviously, you're going to see more bridge use suspended given the ferocity of this storm. This morning, Director Guthrie asked for additional airlift, hoist, and high water vehicles from the Department of Defense in coordination with FEMA. The Department of Transportation also has 1,200 personnel on standby to perform cut and toss operations. We're bringing in supplies by plane, boat, and by high water vehicle. All the airports in Southwest Florida have leave behind teams in place so that they will be able to get the runways in good shape once the storm has passed. We have 5,000 Florida Guardsmen activated, 2,000 from neighboring states. We have air assets, urban search and rescue teams stationed now in Miami that will be able to respond over to Southwest Florida. Florida Fish and Wildlife, both vehicle assets, water assets, and air assets. And the U.S. Coast Guard is now staged 4 cutters. They also have shallow draft vessels ready to provide search and rescue assistance to the flooded areas. There are over 30,000 linemen staged and ready for power restoration efforts across the state of Florida, and that includes linemen across all of our major utilities, and a lot of these linemen are coming from out of state. So this is a major, major effort. Of course, the storm has to pass. There needs to be the ability for them to get in and access what they need to access, but that's going to be a priority, and Kevin and his team are going to be working hard on that. I want to thank the 26 states that have sent support to us during this time, including Tennessee, Virginia, Montana, Louisiana, New York, Colorado, Indiana, New Jersey, and Georgia. We very much appreciate the assistance. And as this storm hits, we've got massive amounts of assets that are staged, but we're already discussing about ways where we can get more value-added support. So most of you have said call, and we may be doing just that as the recovery efforts go forward. So,
you know, folks, you always think about a storm like this, a hurricane like this, and the 2 phases that you really have to be concerned with is pre-storm and then post-storm. Pre-storm, you should follow directions, and in this case, the governor advised people in the storm area to evacuate. If you didn't take that guidance, if you didn't take that advice, and now you have to hunker down, you're concerned with post-storm. And post-storm, what you're going to be very concerned with is A, the loss of electricity, B, the inability to travel out of your residence, storm surges, where the water from the ocean actually rises up and the wind will have it move at a high rate of speed, whereupon 6 inches of water can knock over a man or a woman, and 2 feet of storm surge can carry a pickup truck away. So as you can see, this is no joke. And no one's saying it's a joke, but that's why you have to take it so seriously. And when you see the way government responds to that, this is government's job. Emergency management is so important. And we have FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Administration. They usually do an outstanding job. This is what they do for a living, and they're trained in all aspects. But just think of all the possibilities. Old people that are sick, that they can't get food, they can't get to their medicine, they can't save themselves because they're sickly, or they're too weak or feeble to move around or to get to safety. So all of these things, and like even emergency services like the police and the fire department, they're not doing regular patrols. The police aren't patrolling around because it's too dangerous to drive around. Same thing with the fire department. Responding to an emergency or to a fire may not be an option in this storm. So everything is on an emergency basis, and people have to realize this. And emergency management, emergency responders are stretched to the maximum.
So this is a major storm. It's something that we knew was going to be significant. The strengthening of this over the last night, has been really significant. It's potentially that it could make landfall as a Category 5, but clearly this is a very powerful major hurricane that's going to have major impacts, both on impact in Southwest Florida, but then as it continues to work through the state, it is going to have major impacts in terms of wind, in terms of rain, in terms of flooding. So this is going to be a nasty day, 2 days. Probably we think now it will be exiting the peninsula sometime on Thursday. Yesterday, based on how fast it was moving, thought maybe it would be till the wee hours of Friday morning. So this is going to be a rough stretch. We're here to respond to the areas that are affected once the storm is passed. Local emergency responders are standing by, ready to go. I think most people heeded the warnings of doing the evacuations in those very sensitive locations, but not everyone may have done that. And so we understand that a storm of this magnitude, there's going to be a need, to begin those rescue efforts apace. Kevin Guthrie is here for an update from Florida DEM.
Thank you, Governor. Hurricane Ian, as the governor has mentioned, is projected to make landfall this afternoon on the Charlotte County coast. This will cause life-threatening storm surge, flooding. Tropical storm force winds will be felt throughout the entire state, and even isolated tornadoes. I urge Floridians who have made the decision to shelter in place, to stay indoors, and stay off the roads. You do not want to be outdoors or on the roads as a storm of this size is making landfall in your area. It is extremely dangerous. If you
folks, we experienced in the New York area, Sandy and Katrina, and those storms were pretty damn severe. But we don't have the same type of experience that people in Florida get and people down south get as they get hit with these storms every single year. It's something that I don't know if you ever get used to it, but it's something that you really need to prepare for. How many of us now will go in our house and say, "Oh, we lost electricity. Oh, where's the flashlight? Where's the flashlight? You should have multiple flashlights. Oh, the flashlights, the batteries are dead. Where are the batteries?" Right? And well, none of us, shouldn't say none of us, many of us are not prepared. I would guess right now, I know that I have some AA batteries because I just bought them yesterday, but batteries for a flashlight, I don't think I have them. How many of us have water? Jugs of water in case we can't get clean water. If the water goes out, you can't flush your toilet bowl. How many of us have that? How many of us have, they advise people to have carbon monoxide detectors because, as everything goes out, you need something that could save your life in an emergency like this. How many people have their cell phone charged or an extra battery? So how many people have a landline in their home anymore? I don't. I do, but it's not charged, So all of these things are so important in an emergency. Or how many people have the amount of food that you would need to carry you through an emergency that could last 4 or 5 days, and you can't get to the supermarket because guess what? The supermarket's closed. I know what most people will have. They'll have plenty of beer and plenty of alcohol and plenty of wine, but those are not emergency essentials. And sorry, I say that sort of tongue in cheek and in fun, but those are the things that most people want us to make sure. Oh, you can't run out of wine or beer. AC asks, how many of us depend on Wi-Fi for communication? We're all spoiled. And how about when our Wi-Fi goes down? Oh my God, we can't get on the computer. We can't get on the laptop. That's a real emergency. Nikki, Bella, how are you? Good to see you guys. This is a special edition of Coffee with Cannon. I decided that this was a very important topic. I thought there's so many people, no matter where you live, either have connections to Florida or family in Florida, relatives in Florida, friends in Florida. So I think it's an important thing. It's a very dangerous storm. And I think it's important that we cover it. We know what's going on and to be prepared in the eventuality that a storm like this happens here. It does happen here. We had Sandy and we had Katrina, and that did insurmountable damage. I know I had friends on Long Island that with Sandy, the storm surge came up and got into their house and was as high as 2 feet high. You know what 2 feet of water does to the interior of a house? Yeah, it destroys it. So they have to take out all the wood from 2 feet high and down and replace it, or else it will get mold and it will get all disgusting. And so think of the cost of that, and then think of the cost in an entire neighborhood. And then think of also down the road, people might be reluctant to want to buy a home in an area that had a storm surge, thinking that, oh, this could happen again. Follow the grain in your own wood. Hey, good morning, listening. Wow, on my way to pick up my in-laws to take them grocery shopping. Well, you know something? That's you're a good lady to take your in-laws grocery shopping. So think of all the things in connection with these storms. And we should always, with emergency management, every one of us should be prepared for a storm or for an emergency. And guess what? Most of us probably aren't. And shame on us. We haven't learned to be prepared. We should be prepared.
Traveling, I'll give you a live look right now at the roadway. We're traveling we're traveling westbound on I-4 through Seminole County. Traffic really not packed at this hour. That could certainly change throughout the day if more people decide to hit the roadways in order to evacuate, but it's a lot better than it was yesterday when I saw bumper to bumper traffic, especially around Polk County and Osceola County. A lot of folks from the West Coast, thousands of people were evacuating because of those evacuation orders. Many were mandatory. Now, yesterday I spoke with several people evacuating from that area, and they told me they struggled to find gas and a place to stay at the last minute in Orlando, and now they're just waiting and hoping that the storm spares their home.
Hoping that it does well. We're a little bit elevated, and we put up sandbags and everything that I possibly could to try to stop water from coming in. So hopefully trees won't come down. We'll have to see.
We did everything we could. We moved everything up. We drained the pool as much as we could. So everything that's not replaceable is in here. more than 2.5 million people are under some type of evacuation right now. So if people didn't hit the road yesterday, we expect many more to do so today. The governor is urging those folks to seek higher ground in a safe structure. We have been seeing more rain, but still it is rather moderate at this time. We'll continue to monitor the road conditions throughout the day as Hurricane Ian moves closer to Florida. Reporting live on I-4, Amanda McKenzie, Fox 35 News.
All right, looks like they got some rain-X on their windshield. Those raindrops were just flying off. As Ian gets closer to Central Florida, there has been a flood of people heading to gas stations to try to fill up their cars, maybe their generators. And some gas stations have run out. In fact, a lot of them. Fox 35's Nestor Mato is joining us live. He's in Daytona Beach this morning. He is right outside of Buc-ee's. Are you still at Buc-ee's, Nestor? How are things?
You know, it's funny, during an emergency, yes, let me wait till the last minute to gas up my car. Another brilliant move, but we're all sometimes, I shouldn't say all, many of us are last minute people, but in an emergency, you should not wait till the last minute to fill up your car. Look what just happens. The gas stations run out of gas.
Things looking there?
Yeah, I'm still at Buc-ee's, and in fact, you know, the staff here says the plan is for them to remain open throughout the storm. At least that's how it's looking, and they have extra gas tanks as well, besides the fact that all their pumps are filled of gas. So we were talking to people who came from the Palm Coast saying, you know, there wasn't gas near me, I'm coming over here. Some reports from New Smyrna Beach, people saying there's no gas near me, so they came to Buc-ee's. We're showcasing you this man right now. You can see him filling up not only his car, but his gas cans. And that is something that we've consistently seen here. People not only want to make sure they have enough gas for their cars, but they want to make sure that if they lose power, they go ahead and have fuel to fill that up as well. As I mentioned, you know, the Buc-ee's says that they're going to stay open throughout the storm. So it's not time to get your last fill of gas before the storm really starts impacting our area. You could also even get a hot meal here. So this is actually a really good one-stop shop, at least for now. But just to touch base on the weather, it's been drizzling throughout the morning, and we get that squally bands that come through every so often. But for now, this is what we're dealing with. I'm live in Daytona Beach. Nestor Mato, Fox 35 News.
And if you do need gas, certainly lots of pumps there to get it. Thank you so much for that, Nestor. Our time right now is 8:40. And still to come, we'll get on to another look at Hurricane Ian as it is still creeping closer to Southwest Florida. And
Folks, it's so scary when they talk about winds of 140 to 150 miles an hour. And I believe the threshold to make it a Category 5 is 150 miles an hour. I've been in Florida, and when there's been one of those, have you ever been in Florida and there's like a 10-minute or 15-minute tornado and you see the palm trees like bending in half? The power of the wind and the surge and all of that stuff, it's crazy. And I can imagine this, a sustained 150 mile an hour wind. I mean, think of the damage that can do. People that, you know, a lot of people always want to be living by the ocean. Oh, I want to live by the water. There's a price to pay for that, though. You know, you live by the ocean, and, you know, the storm surge, the ocean comes up and the wind moves it, and it does unbelievable damage, you know, and you folks know this, you know, it's no joke. And we've been in Florida. I think we've seen this severe weather, and it's devastating. It's devastating. And people that live in Florida, I don't know if you ever get used to this type of weather, but they certainly are experienced at it. They certainly are veterans of tornadoes and hurricanes, and they know the type of damage it does. They know when they're ordered to evacuate. Some people still don't take the advice. Some people, they do it right away.
Just hooking up a few more power lines, and that's what they'll do. But in those areas that are going to have the most severe impact, it's likely going to require to have some re-engineering, to have some structural fixes, and that's going to require manpower, but it's just going to take a little bit more time. So people understand. I was able to speak to the president of FPL. They understand how significant this is. They understand how important it is to get the services back up and running. But we also understand the severity of this storm and the really, really catastrophic damage that it can inflict on the coast, on the southwest coast of Florida. You are starting to see power outages across the state, but you're going to see way more over the next 48 hours. I mean, you're going to have millions of people without power in this state within the next 48 hours, no question. This morning, Kevin Guthrie, our director of the Florida Department of Emergency Management, has asked for additional airlift, hoists, and high water vehicles from the Department of Defense in coordination of FEMA. The SecDef has approved Florida's request for dual status of our National Guard forces under Title 10 to provide additional resources and additional forces, and we're really thankful for the fulfillment of that request. We've got about 1,200 personnel for our Florida Department of Transportation that are on standby to perform cut and toss operations. These guys can't work if they can't get to where they're going. And so that's the top priority for the Florida Department of Transportation, as well as Florida Highway Patrol, to clear these roads, to make sure that the bridges are safe, and to really green light these operations to get back into these communities. In Southwest Florida, this is a lesson from Irma. They have people that they're calling leave behind teams, so that when the storm passes, their job is to clear the runways and make sure that we can resume air operations as quickly as possible. There's going to be a need to bring in things like food and water via fixed wing aircraft. And so you want to have those runways up and running as soon as possible. Obviously, some of them could be underwater. I mean, it's there's going to be things that go into that, but having those folks on the ground there to do it I think is going to make a big difference.
You know, folks, when you listen to the Governor DeSantis, the other part of this is personal preparation. You should personally prepare for these emergencies and not count on government and people to help you out. You should be prepared. Have the things necessary. Have some candles. Have some flashlights. Have enough food. Have extra water. As someone just said in the chat, make sure you fill up your bathtub with water before the storm hits so that you have water to flush your toilet. People don't think about that. It takes approximately 2.5 gallons of water to flush your toilet. So every time you flush your toilet, you need 2.5 gallons. So prepare. Have the things you need. Be able to help your neighbor if possible. If you have some extra supplies, extra food, extra flashlights, extra batteries, extra candles. Everyone needs to stick together during these times because it can get life-threatening, absolutely life-threatening.
We have 5,000 guardsmen. We have 2,000 from other states. We've got 9 Chinooks, rotary wing aircraft that are ready to respond. Of course, Jimmy Petronas has been talking about our urban search and rescue teams. 5 of them are ready to go. And they will be in that to commence rescue operations as soon as it's safe to do so. Our Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission has placed their special operations group in Broward County. That's high water vehicles, shallow draft boats, and helicopters that are ready for immediate deployment once it is safe to do so. I want to thank, we now have total throughout the state. We've got over 40,000 personnel, linemen, and associated personnel that are involved with restoration of electrical services and power services that are stationed in the state of Florida. And these are folks that are staged across the state of Florida. If you look in Southwest Florida, you're going to have movement, less likely from southeast for additional surge of resources. Of course, this staging area is going to send people all across the state. I know FPL is mindful of, yes, we're going to have a catastrophic impact in Southwest Florida, but this thing is going to, really barrel across the state. It's going to be a strong storm. I mean, it's going to weaken once it gets on shore, but you're going to end up, you could end up in Central Florida to have winds, certainly gusts that would be hurricane force. It's going to at least be a tropical storm as it barrels across. That's going to cause problems with the vegetation. It's going to cause problems with trees. The ground's already wet based on the amount of precipitation we have. That's ripe conditions for trees to fall over. That means more power lines are down. So that's going to have a cascading effect. So the most significant impacts will obviously be the landfall, but you're going to have other impacts. And so that's why you have these folks stage. That's why you have so many people, because there's going to be a lot of different places around the state of Florida where they're going to have to respond to.
You know, folks, you have to be prepared, and government has to be prepared. Emergency management, emergency responders have to be prepared for every possible eventuality and prepare for them. You know, pre-storm, we're all working on the evacuation. We're all making sure we have supplies. Well, if we need to get out of Dodge, we should get the hell out. Post-storm, though, is some of the most dangerous times. And the reason that is because power lines down, trees down. The storm surge is one of the most dangerous things about these hurricanes. And you hear the term storm surge, and really what it means is that the ocean rises up and it spreads out across the land and does tremendous amount of damage. But depending on how strong the wind is, that'll get the water moving at a certain speed. And as I said before, 6 inches of storm surge can knock over a man or a woman. 2 feet can carry a pickup truck down the street. So that's how strong a storm surge can be. In addition, when it gets into buildings, basements, it causes havoc with the electrical grid. And all of these things have to be anticipated. And that's why he spoke about having hundreds and thousands of electrical linemen that are going to be able to re-up and reconnect the grid when the anticipation of the electricity goes down.
We now have 26 states that have sent us support right now, including Tennessee, Virginia, Montana, Louisiana, New York, Colorado, Indiana, New Jersey, and Georgia. I want to thank them for their support. It's much appreciated. I've been in contact personally, but then also the Florida Department of Emergency Management. We're in contact with the local folks, particularly in Southwest Florida, about needs, and their needs have been met. Obviously, once the storm hits, there's going to be additional needs, and we stand by ready to offer the support in that regard. It's very, very important. We are going to have significant rescue operations that are going to have to be done, because you have some people, not most, but you do have some people who've chosen to hunker down in some very vulnerable areas. And so that is going to be something that I know that they're keeping a very close eye on. They're going to monitor the impacts of the storm and then monitor how those folks have been able to weather it. But we anticipate, whether it's ground, water, air, all different types of ways to go in and help people. That's going to commence immediately upon this storm hitting. Pray for people. This is a major, major storm. You never want to see any storms hit, because it creates a lot of problems. But I'll tell you, the state has done a lot of storms over the past. There's some you deal with. It's never fun. It's never fun to have damage. It's never fun to see flooding. It's never fun to see power interrupted. But you kind of deal with it, and then you move forward. There's some storms that really leave an indelible impact, and we've been working with the folks up in Northwest Florida on Hurricane Michael. That was a major storm. There are obviously people that were directly impacted. We had fatalities as a result of that storm. But then you had so many other things that have happened all the way to this day that recovery goes on. This is going to be one of those historic storms.
Folks, I'd like to just, some people, Kathleen from the chat, she's from Lake Placid. I know Lake Placid from upstate New York. I didn't know there was a Lake Placid, Florida, but Lake Placid, Florida here have windows over and Generac generator full of propane. So Kathleen, you're obviously prepared for this storm and the eventuality, or in fact, maybe you've already lost electricity, but you're obviously prepared. Aussie Gardner, yes, AC and shops out of commission. It's going to be hard the first few weeks. Folks, for us not from Florida, one of the things we also must realize is Florida is hot as hell, right? 80, 85, 90 degrees in places. So without AC, there is a bit of a hardship. I'm sure we're sitting here like, oh, that's the least, but sit in a a house or a room or a hotel or a school or anywhere where the AC is out and it's 85 degrees. It's quite uncomfortable. And you may think that, oh, that's the least of their worries, but it's actually not. It's not the least of your worries. It's part of your worries. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon. If you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell. I always enjoy seeing new people coming into this family. If you want to support us, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel memberships with 5 different levels. And you can see the folks in the chat with the green font. They're members of our YouTube family. Usually I do a show 12:50 in the afternoon, and it's called Coffee with Cannon. It's a little lighter than this, and I do it from outside. But today I thought that this was an important story. And many of us, Lovebug53, we love you, Bill. Thank you, Lovebug53. That's very heartening. I really appreciate that. Oh, some of you had asked me yesterday, could you have some Supreme Commander coffee mugs made? And Josh, our engineer, is working on it. He's working on a design, and we're going to hopefully get some Supreme Commander coffee mugs out. You guys can drink your coffee watching Coffee with Cannon with a Supreme Commander coffee mug. And I'm hoping that we can get that before the holidays. We'll see what happens, The hurricane was also struck Cuba, and of course the Florida Keys. I don't know if any of you guys, I'm sure many of you have been to the Florida Keys. 2 years in a row I went to Isla Morada, one of the most beautiful places in the world. And I've imagined this stretch, this island that's just surrounded by the ocean. I imagined how it was, what it was like, in a storm like this. And the storm surge must be unbelievable, and the wind and everything must hit the Florida Keys harder. There's nothing to block the wind or to block the water or to absorb the water. So I mean, I just sometimes there's a price to pay for paradise too. It's just, I want to just play a little bit of this. This was from Cuba. And the problems they had with this storm.
I'm Madison Glassman at the WKRN.com alert desk. Hurricane Ian has just made landfall in Cuba after strengthening to a Category 3 storm. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says it has sustained winds of 125 miles per hour. Authorities in Cuba evacuated more than 50,000 people in Pinar del Rio province. That's the country's main tobacco growing region. The government has set up dozens of shelters in the island. The hurricane is expected to strike Florida as early as Wednesday, possibly as a Category 4 storm. The first wave of mandatory evacuations have been put in Central Florida. Tampa International Airport announced they will be stopping all operations at 5 p.m. today. Hillsborough County schools will not be open through Thursday. Some of the schools will be acting as storm shelters. For breaking news around the clock, go to WKRN.com.
So that was that's from Cuba. I mean, obviously this was an earlier report from earlier in the week, and it's since passed there, and I would think that the worst has passed Cuba. But just, when you see who and how and the results of the effect of this storm, we all remember Katrina in New Orleans, how devastating that was. And the levees failed, and the whole area, you saw people on the roofs of their home having to be saved. And it was really a horrible thing. I remember I was on the police department at the time. They had sent hundreds of NYPD to New Orleans to assist in the rescue efforts. And that was a horrible storm. And then in the Northeast, our horrible storm was Sandy, which did billions of dollars worth of damage. And it was the first time I can think of in my lifetime that we were hit so hard, that we were hit that hard by a storm. We usually don't get hit that way in the Northeast, but in Sandy, that was one of the times, the rare times where we got hit, and we got to feel what it was like in the Northeast.
Visiting the peninsula sometime on Thursday, yesterday, based on how fast it was moving. Thought maybe it would be till the wee hours of Friday morning. So this is going to be a rough stretch. We're here to respond to the areas that are affected once the storm is passed. Local emergency responders are standing by, ready to go. You know, I think most people heeded the warnings of doing the evacuations in those very sensitive locations, but not everyone may have done that. And so we understand that a storm of this magnitude, you know, there's going to be a need, to begin those rescue efforts apace. Kevin Guthrie is here for an update from Florida DEM.
Thank you, Governor. Hurricane Ian, as the governor has mentioned, is projected to make landfall this afternoon on the Charlotte County coast. This will cause life-threatening storm surge, flooding, tropical storm force winds will be felt throughout the entire state, and even isolated tornadoes. I urge Floridians who have made the decision to shelter in place, to stay indoors, and stay off the roads. You do not want to be outdoors or on the roads as a storm of this size is making landfall in your area. It is extremely dangerous. If you have battery operated or hand cranked weather radios, you should be checking them now, changing the batteries, making sure that they work. Power outages will occur. If you get a weather alert for a tornado, and as the governor has already mentioned, if you're in the Southwest Florida area, you should make the same preparations as if it is a tornado going over your house. Get to an interior room, free of windows. Have stuff to be able to protect your head and body from the debris, such as a blanket, sleeping bag, mattress, or even potentially helmets. If there are flash flood warnings in your area, remember, it is never safe to walk or drive through flooded areas. We continue to coordinate with all of our electrical partners. As the governor has mentioned, there are over 30,000 linemen staged throughout the city, from North Central Florida all the way down to Miami. As areas in South Florida and the Keys begin to experience power outages, remember to contact your service provider, not 911, for power restoration. You can also keep your refrigerators shut, open them as little as possible to help preserve your perishable items. If you're using a generator, as we've been saying now for days, remember to keep it elevated on a hard surface, away from doors and windows, outside of garages. This will help you stay safe. If residents have any questions about resources for Hurricane Ian, I urge them to reach out to their local emergency management or public safety office. This storm is here. It is imminent. I can tell you it is a Cat 4 hurricane, nearly a Cat 5. I know all of the emergency management directors in Southwest Florida very well. Combined, they have over 200 years of experience. They're preparing and they're expecting a Cat 5. So please stay indoors, stay away from windows, get to an interior location of your house. If anyone has any questions and they still have phone service, if you need to contact the state to ask for assistance, we have a cell assistance information line. That number is 1-800-342-3557. That is 1-800-342-3557. As always, please follow us on our social media at Facebook and our Twitter page at FLCERT. Thank you, Governor, for your leadership.
Jimmy?
Thank you, Governor. Florida.
So, folks, you could see that they're not preparing for this. The storm is there. The storm is there, and they'll be dealing with it now. The hardest, it was supposed to make land in Fort Myers area after 1200 hours, 12 noon. I don't know if anyone's in contact with anyone from the Fort Myers area, but it apparently has reached that area, has reached the shore. So if you have any insight in regards to whether or not it's reached the land there, um, let us know. Let us know what it's like. Let us know if someone on the ground can advise us. The wind, whether there is a storm surge, how the severity of it. We all have connections. At least most of us do have connections to Florida. In fact, my younger sister owns a condo in Fort Myers. Luckily, she's still up north. She didn't head down there yet, but she's going to have to head down there earlier uh, to see, pending how much damage there is to her home. So um, these are all concerns with people that live down there, and people that are concerned with their homes, people concerned with their neighbors, people concerned with their families down there. Folks, if you need an attorney in the New York area, retired NYPD police officer Joe Murray is your man. Joe Murray is an outstanding defense attorney, and he's available in the New York City metropolitan area. You can reach Joe on his cell at 718-514-3855. You can email him at joe@jmurray-law.com. His website is jmurray-law.com. I can't say enough about Joe Murray. He's a big, big supporter of police off-the-cuff real crime stories. He's an outstanding attorney, and he's one of the most hardworking attorneys I know. So again, if you're looking for a great attorney, Joe Murray, 718-514-3855. Joe Murray, attorney at law. So, folks, this is really a scary thing, and we've experienced it in the Northeast. Sandy, Katrina. We got a taste of these storms in New York State. Marilyn Manetta says New York State stinks every day. I hate living here. Well, we're all masters of our own destiny. If we don't like living somewhere, we can leave, right? We don't have to stay here. Nikki Bella, I don't think Joe Murray's watching the show right now. He's probably in court right now, applying his trade as an attorney. But Lovebug says she's hated Ohio. If there's anyone new here today and you're not subscribed, go on our YouTube, hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell. I thought I would reach more than 100 people in the chat today, but I think if I'm not outside for some reason, people love the outside, I'm inside on the computer because I wanted to show you some of the pictures from the storm and some of the graphics from the storm and the area that the storm, in fact, is encompassing. And here's a little chart in regards to the storm surge. And as you could see, areas in the yellow up to 6 feet, areas in the orange up to 9 feet, and areas that are in the red. And I guess that would be the eye of the storm. The storm surge can be up to 12 feet. That can be quite dangerous and very damaging to the area, just ridiculously damaging. When you see the aftermath of these storms with the flooding, and it takes a while for this water to go down, to recede, go back into the ocean. And once it does that, it's done so much damn damage. It's really a horror. That's the same chart we saw before with the storm surge. 140 miles per hour, and they're saying that's 140 miles per hour wind is a Category 4. It's actually going to go up to, I believe, 150, which would make Category 5 hurricane, which is I think the worst hurricane they've had in a very long time. I'm going to look into the chat. There's a lot of people in the chat. Texas motto, turn around, don't drown. That's the Texas motto. I thought some of you guys would go. Alley Cat, I'm in Miami. The winters are tough, but I love my state. Oh, that's Minnesota, Alley Cat. You're in Minnesota. The winters are tough, but love my state. Good for you. Kay Cooper at Kim Allison. Yes, ma'am. Very important to stay off the roads. I know I do because I'm so scared of flooding. Aussie Gardner, I'm new and just subbed. Thank you, Aussie Gardner. Thank you for joining the Police Off the Cuff family. We're always good to have new people join us. Kathleen, have our pontoon up in dock and tied down. Good for you. Following directions, right? There's really no. I thought you guys were going to give us some wisdom in the chat today about Trucker Steve, 2 degrees on water temperature. So, guys, we're going to be following this story, and we're going to pray for the people from Florida that this storm doesn't cause too much damage, doesn't cause loss of life, and that the emergency workers and the governor and the infrastructure in Florida can get life back to normal as quickly as possible, get people back on their electricity back on, get people back in their homes and start rebuilding after this storm. It just happens to be a fact of life. If you live in Florida or one of these coastal communities, you're going to get hit. You're going to get hit by these storms every once in a while. And as I said, we want to say a prayer for them. You know, folks, thank you for joining me today. It was a pleasure, and we're going to follow this. We're going to follow this case. We're going to follow this event. It's not really a case, right? We're going to follow this event, and we're going to see. Hopefully, everyone will survive it with not too much damage, and the people of Florida will have survived another storm and another horrendous weather incident. But here we are up north. We're watching, hoping and praying that it goes smoothly. Guys, thank you for tuning in today for Coffee with Cannon, Backyard Beverage, Bitchin' with Bill, whatever you want to call it. A little different of a show today, watching the hurricane down in Florida. Have a great day, and God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.